I will not compete with the music next door, but I hope I will be loud enough and be able to sustain your interest. Again, very pleased to be here and very honored to be invited to this very distinguished forum of panelists. And again, I'm here to learn, to share, and to discuss for possible practical solutions. My views will be from a practitioner's point of view. And I think just to let you know about a little bit about myself, is that I've just taken up this position as CEO of the Mekong River Commission Secretariat since January of this year. So we take turns amongst the riparian countries. Since 2016, we started with Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and now Thailand. And so I am a Thai national, but I am now working for the Secretariat. And just for the presentation on this afternoon, within 20 minutes, I will try to be as clear, as succinct, but just to introduce to you what we do at the Mekong River Commission. Many of you are familiar with our work, many of you maybe not. Secondly, what are the issues faced in the Mekong River Basin, particularly the Mekong Delta? The issues that were discussed this morning and I think this afternoon addressed in the Q&A are some of the reflections which I face every day in our decision-making process, and the issues that are, of course, how do we invent futures, and of course the Buddhist philosophy of certainty is the uncertainty. And this, I think it's something that we have to work with. But at the same time, at the end of the day, for me, it's, again, multilateralism, I think, is not dead, because we still need joint collaborative efforts in whatever we do. We cannot work in silos. We cannot work on our own. So this interdisciplinary approach to water policy, water security, integrated water resources management is so valuable to the Mekong River Basin. And the ways that we can do it, it's, I think, through continued engagement, dialogue, cooperation. So that is why we take an approach of how do we encourage at multi-stakeholders approaches, how do we involve stakeholders engagement, how do we try to encourage an inclusive approach to find practical, implementable, but concrete solutions to the work that we do. And I think at the end of the day, we can't not escape data and innovation. So these are some of the key highlights in the working processes of the MRC at the moment. Just to briefly, and I hope I can, okay, here we are. Just briefly, some colleague kindly mentioned about the Mekong Committee that was established in 1957. It was established under the UN Economic and Social Commission of Asia Pacific. That's an office located in Thailand at the moment. So, 4 countries understood that there is complexities revolving around the Mekong River. They tried. And of course, there was a period of discussions, consultations over the years, particularly in the international political context about, remnants of the Indochina War and, about the Vietnam-Cambodia conflict. But eventually, they all came together with a 1995 Mekong Agreement against the backdrop of the ASEAN community building an organization that was started in, of course, in 1960. With the 4 countries, we are an intergovernmental organization based in Vientiane, Laos, PDR. I have about 64 staff members with me from 4 riparian countries, and we work. The MRC Secretariat works as a technical arm and, of course, manages the administration for the 4 countries with the 4 countries. Shared principles have helped us to maintain, we talked about peace this morning. I think that is a backdrop that we are working with. So prevention of conflicts, how do we promote regional stability? But at the end of the day, I think across all stakeholders, we would agree that it's shared prosperity through the Mekong River Basin. The structure that we have, quickly, it's a governance structure coming from the heads of government level. We meet every 4 years. The last summit meeting was in Laos PDR in 2023. The next one will be in Thailand. On an annual basis, the ministers of ministries of water resources, or for Vietnam and Laos PDR at the moment is Ministry of Agriculture and Environment, and for Cambodia is MORAM, and for Thailand it's the Office of National Water Resources. These ministers meet every year. Next month we'll have our annual meeting. On a daily basis is a joint committee of the 4 countries that come together, and we discuss, talk about the work plan, and the Secretariat supports. We work closely with our dialogue partners that are China and Myanmar. We have a close collaboration with them, but they are not parties to the agreement. But upstream, downstream cooperation is essential. The vision and the mission of the MRC, the vision is to be an economically prosperous, socially just, and environmentally sound and climate resilient Mekong River Basin. The vision for the MRC is a world-class, financially secure international river basin organization. So we work closely with other RBOs as well, serving the Mekong countries to achieve the basin vision that I mentioned. And the mission of the MRC is to promote and coordinate sustainable management and development of water and related resources for the country's mutual benefit and the people's well-being. So that's a lot on our plate, but how do we work? Basically, we have the Basin Development Strategy of 2021 to 2030 to guide our work, and under that, the MRC Strategic Plan of 21 to 25. We've just come to the end of the 21 to 25 strategic plan, and we are embarking on the next 5-year strategic plan, which I will touch about on our priorities. And I think this is where we can certainly tap along from your knowledge and expertise in the way forward, so I look forward to hearing your views as well. The Basin Development Strategy outlines for Priority 1, the maintaining the ecological function of the Mekong. So in each of the priorities, we see it's in alignment with the SDGs and how we tackle these cooperation. Secondly, Priority 2 is on to enable inclusive access and utilization of the water uses and the related resources. So community well-being, poverty reduction. Thirdly, to enhance optimal and sustainable development, economic growth and benefits, inclusive sectoral growth. Fourthly, strengthening resilience against climate risks, extreme floods and droughts. And fifthly, an aspect that we can not do without is partnerships and collaboration, strengthening stakeholders, not only within and amongst the member countries, amongst the agencies, but going abroad in terms of partnerships, whether it be financial or technical support. So we have many development partners that have helped us through the years. The MRC core functions are of the river basin management functions is on analysis, modeling, assessment, on basin planning, forecasting, warning, and emergency. The MRC procedures under the 1995 agreement is talking about procedures on data sharing, information exchange. It's on talking about the water use, talking about water quality, and talking about the management flow of the water in the mainstream. And an important part of that, and maybe many of you are familiar because we deal a lot about the hydropower projects along the Mekong River Basin. So we have the prior notification, consultation, and agreement process, which means that each country amongst the four member countries, if they are to build or construct an infrastructure or a dam or a hydropower project, they have to notify each other through the PNPCA process with the Secretariat, so that there can be consultations, inclusive process again, particularly involving the developers to see to prevent and minimize the economic, social, and environmental impacts in these constructions. So we've done a lot of work on that. And what lessons that we learned over the years, certainly considerable progress has been made implementing the current SP of 2021 to 25, contributing to the BDS and the SDGs as I outlined. We set high commitments for planning, implementing, and reporting the current SP, including addressing the socio-economic impacts on riparian communities on the Lower Mekong Basin, so inclusive stakeholder engagement, consultations, regional stakeholders forums is how we work through with the member countries. We do have limited resources and capacity, but we have to push forward in mainstreaming the work on gender vulnerability, and this we have to collect a lot of data because there is a lack of disaggregated data that involves in the work in the different sectors when it comes to water resources management. We need to further engage in partnerships needed with local riparian communities and other stakeholders, and the next SP to better reflect these emerging challenges and move forward on the key strategic priorities. Based on the work that we have done, I think every 4 or 5 years we have the State of the Basin report, and we issued the report in 2023. It was published in 2024. I think some of these challenges you mentioned this morning, whether it be salinity, saltwater intrusion, sediment trappings, climate change, the weather invariability, the construction and the impacts of these constructions do impact on the work that we do. But at this water quality is another rising. I would be happy to touch a bit on what the work we do, particularly on the Kok River and the confluences to the Mekong River. But the conditions, affecting aquaculture, fisheries, declining breeds, how do we try to save aquaculture? Declined sediment transport, that's going to be a priority for the sediment management plan. We did a study tour to France and to Switzerland, the sediment flushing operation that's done every 3-4 years. We witnessed that and we see how complex that has been for two European sovereign nations. But it's something that we can learn, and I think we have to plan for to ensure that we can minimize impacts for the future and long-term sustainability. Rising sea levels, I had mentioned. Sorry, I should have, yes, here we are. Rising sea levels and the flood and drought challenges, climate change, undoubtedly, different socio-economic contexts. So I think data will be essential in that regard. Key activities that we have been doing, contributions to the Mekong Delta, knowledge products, guideline tools, studies that you have seen, some were mentioned this morning, and that these have to be implemented through consultative processes, experts groups. How do we mainstream it into the national levels in terms of implementation? But the complexity of the involvement of agencies in each country is also complex in their own. So we work, as I mentioned, about the National Mekong Committee in each country. So they will be leading the discussions in the country, but they have to form a position and feedback to the issues that we work on within the MRC. The data collection assessments that I mentioned, we need to do more. And we have started the work. Of course, we have been impacted a bit by the suspension of the USAID support, but we will not stop the work on gender vulnerability, SDGs, and climate change, but we will find alternative sources of funding to do that, so we can better accurately plan water resources at the regional and national levels. With China, we have the MRC Secretariat has a MOU cooperation with the Lanchang Mekong Cooperation Water Resources Center and the Changjiang Water Resources Commission. And we also participate in the Lanchang Mekong Water Resources Management platform, serving in the discussions of the 6 countries. So there is a synergy in the work that we do, but how best to maximize these efforts so that we can, again, reassure that the benefits do go back to the peoples and the communities. So the joint study between the MRC and Lanchang Mekong Cooperation is in the 2nd phase. We have been doing studies on the hydrological changes and situation in the MRB, but we will increasingly want to do more work to improve the data sharing, common understanding on water quality, sediment, ecological health, as well as salinity, intrusion, erosion, and climate risk. But on a day-to-day basis, we do have good cooperation with China, particularly on their sharing of the hydrological data when it comes to water releases and discharge from the 2 main stations, so that we can ensure that we have better flood management preparations, and particularly for the drought as well. Other aspects will be on the key, sorry, I'm going back. No, here we are. the platform for riparian communities to understand implications and provide feedback on the proposed hydropower project. I mentioned about the PNPCA procedures, which remain vital to our work. And with that, we also have the preliminary dam design guidance for the developers through the member countries to look at, and a consultative process to ensure that we minimize impacts early on before the construction begins. We have more integrated river and environmental monitoring, expanding the core river monitoring network, collecting data. I have 5 minutes left to improve the accuracy and timeliness of the flood and drought forecasting. And this is the bread and butter of the MRC so that we can ensure we have accurate forecasting and improved communications. We have an education and visitor center at the MRC Secretariat, a situation room. We've introduced technology through the One Mekong application. You can download it to see the water levels, water flow predictions, flood forecasting with the Flood Center in Phnom Penh doing the technical support. We have an community engagement for the forecasting, and this is regarding the IA report from the communities. Other community engagements involved that we're working on, and I think there's a lot of interest in the community engagement aspects from what I hear this morning. So we're also reaching out to the communities to ensure that we do care about the different types of livelihoods, agricultural activities that are undertaken by the Mekong communities and farmers. For example, we have worked with Lao PDR on the increased value added and how do we produce the river weed kai, which many of you know is a well-known product delicacy in Luang Prabang. In Thailand, we're doing white onions. In Vietnam, they're doing research pomelos. And in Cambodia, we're doing fish. And other types of activities, particularly, I think not too far from here, partnering, I think, with the UN Office of South-South Cooperation, with the support of the Korean government, is appealing triangular cooperation on sustainable development. And the goal is to improve livelihoods by scaling innovative water, energy, and food solutions. And I think this resonates when people say it's starting small but impactful. It's a project which is a 5-year project located in Tan Hao Commune, Vin Long Province. The challenge, the problem was a severe salinity intrusion, water scarcity, but how do we introduce particularly using the solar-powered reverse osmosis desalination system, the brine byproducts reused for agriculture to sustain livelihood opportunities. I mentioned, I think I have 2 minutes left, the next strategic plans for the next 5 years. We've just finalized that. It will be approved by the council next month. But we do realize that we want to be more focused with a scarcity of financial resources. Our resources come from the contributions to the member countries and partnerships with development partners. Okay, we're at the crossroads. 2 minutes. Oh, that was two minutes clearly. To maintain or do we go forward? But we have to adapt our own working structures and procedures as well. So strategic areas, strengthening institutional foundations and governance, that will be a very strong component. Reinforcing implementation of MRC procedures, securing financial sustainability, enhancing data monitoring and predictive capabilities for decision support. So using advanced tools to make our decision support more accurate, more reliable for the flood forecasting and predictions, to lessen the impacts for the peoples and communities. And this was a lesson learned from last year in 2024, September, with floods, and then it was exacerbated by Yagi storm, as you may recall. We now see that there is a clear connection between managing joint flood management plans together with the hydropower coordination, particularly in tributaries. Third, advancing coordinated river basin management operations. Fourth, delivering tangible benefits through significant transboundary projects and with community impact. And fifth, again, partnerships and expanding the knowledge exchange. Strategic shift for our work, not And monitoring we will do, but I think active monitoring, but a proactive approach to addressing these issues. Hydropower coordination and transboundary projects will continue to be the focus of our work. And of course, strengthening cooperation, partnerships and communities, and some of the work that we're doing, joint water quality, researching on fish breeding center, research on Mekong products, transboundary fisheries projects, some transboundary management, particularly between Thailand and Cambodia, Cambodia and Vietnam, on joint projects, taking some examples from other continents as well. And that was the alarm. I think I have to go off now. This is just in sum of the work that we do, and would certainly be happy to respond to the questions. I hope I will be able to respond and to hear your feedback and views. Thank you very much.